Okay, so we are yet at another game, and today we will be covering Ash Echoes. Now, this is a day before the release, right? I am recording this on the 12th of November because I do have the content creator access to this game, and by my level, you can see that I have been playing the game for a little bit. I would say I am close to like 1.5, maybe close to 2 months when I have been playing this game on and off, right? There have been some days where I haven't logged on, but yeah, I just try to build a little bit of experience about this game, and today I will be talking about a little bit of a beginner introduction to this game, right? It will not be just a showcase of 1 or 2 battles and that's it, right? I will try to go a little bit deeper, explain some of the concepts, right? And today I'm gonna be starting with the two main topics, and that will be the Echomancers as well as the memory tracer. So these are the main two things that you essentially have to summon for, right? There will be banners for Echomancers, as you can see as the limited one as well. This is a preview of what you will have on launch. I have confirmed with the developers of the game that these banners will be the banners that will be available, as well as this version right now will be the version that is available. So for example, there will be the same event. I'm just guessing the duration might be extended a bit. But yeah, so we're gonna talk about Echomancers. You can see that I have pretty much every single Echomancer apart from one 6-star, I believe, right? But yeah, I have tried to play around with a lot of them. They have been evolved. I have quite a bit of memory tracers, so we'll talk about all of them, and yeah, let's go. Okay, so let's talk about Echomancers a bit. So currently there are 4 different tiers of Echomancers, right? So the biggest one, the previous summon, will be the 6-star Echomancers. They will have this little rainbow coloring right here, and you can see that there is currently, I believe there is 11 in total. I have 10 at the moment. I am still missing one. There is also 5 stars. I do want to mention in this game, 6 stars will be like the absolute dominating force. I know in other games you can still make 5 stars and sometimes 4 stars in this game, at least make work. For this one, even an unleveled 6-star will usually be much stronger than the 5 stars and 4 stars, with some exceptions, right? For example, Freda right here, she is a 5-star, however, she is like the top tier support unit in this game, so there's definitely still units that are useful, but for the major part, at least when it comes to like tanks, when it comes to like DPS units, 6 stars will be the go-tos, right? So there are 6 stars, 5 stars, which are like the semi-premium summons, 4 stars are the default summons, and there's also a whole different tier of 1 stars. These are very weird because they usually, their skills are like very support oriented, tank oriented. For example, I believe this one doesn't even have a basic attack. So yeah, usually you do not want to be using 1 stars, but they can be used in some of the teams because they have very specific roles. For example, I believe this guy is like purely a tank, right? And if you need purely a tank, he might be able to fill that role, but then again, he's a 1-star. His stats will be much lower than some of your 5 stars and 6 stars. So yeah, you primarily are gonna be looking into using 6 stars in this game. And the thing you want to pay attention to when it comes to characters will be these parts, right? So the first one is basically an icon of their type, and the second one is an icon of their element, right? So in this game, there are 3 different types, I believe. I want to call them like this, right? There are specific names where you can see this square with a little U or V or whatever you call it is called bulwark, right? What I do is I just call them a square, a what's it called, diagonal square, I guess, right? Let's run with that, and a triangle, because essentially you don't need to know the exact class, but a lot of the mechanics in this game will be based on, first of all, the element, and second of all, based on the class. So for example, there will be a memory trace that will only work on units that have this little square icon, right? I think I can show you an example of that. Let me quickly find one. Okay, and here it is. You can see that some skills will work on all classes. For example, if there is no specific mention of it, it will work on all Echomancers, but if there is a little icon right here, you can see that it will only work on those classes. So for example, all 3 of these squares, Vanguard, Bulwark, Striker, this Echo will only work on them, right? Now the second thing you want to pay attention to is the elements. So there are, I believe, is it 6 or 7 elements? Let me quickly check. There is 7 elements. I want to group them up a bit, right? So physical will be an element with essentially neutral damage. It doesn't have advantages or disadvantages, right? It will just be neutral damage. It will work on everyone, and this is probably like the safest option to go for if you don't want to mess too much with elemental reactions, right? Corrosion is another sort of a special element because it does not interact with any other element. However, this one works based on your little tower that is placed in the fight, right? In this game, essentially, this is like a gacha slash tower defense game where your goal is to strategically place your units on the field in order to defend the tower's HP in the fight, right? Like, you lose the fight if your tower drops to 0 HP, and if you are able to protect it until the end or until you kill everything, you will win the fight, right? So corrosion works based on the strength of your tower as well as your corrosion stacking units. What corrosion does is essentially you will reach 100 stacks every certain amount of seconds, and it will do a big explosion based on the enemy's max HP, right? And for the other elements, these can participate in elemental reactions. I think Wind 1 is like a default element, but it cannot participate in any reactions if I recall correctly, right? Whereas the other 4 are able to interact with each other in some ways. For example, if you have a pool of water and you add lightning to it, the units in that pool of water that have been struck by lightning will be stunned, they will essentially be grounded, and they will not be able to move or attack you for a few seconds, right? Then if you mix water with fire, it will create a vaporized zone, which will give some buffs to your allies. There's a lot of combinations between these 4, right? And I will try to cover them in a separate video, so if you are interested in seeing more explanations about this, please make sure to subscribe. But yeah, now let's talk a bit more about the upgrades, right? So there are several types of upgrades to your characters. The main one will be Ascension, right? Like, this is the general rank up in this game. Now do keep in mind, characters in this game do not have any levels, right? You cannot just simply level up a character. The most you can do is either increase their Ascension, which will essentially boost all of the stats. I can do it to Ascension level 5, as you can see. It will cost certain amount of materials as well as coins, and it will increase a bunch of stats. So first of all, it will increase the max level of your skills, right? You can see that from level 4 to level 5, it will increase the maximum skill level. From 6 to 9, it will increase the initial engraving levels, right? These are used in the nexus, which I will cover in the next video. And it will also increase the base stats of the unit itself, as well as its engravings as a leader, which also mostly matters in the nexus, which I will be covering quite soon. And on top of that, once you reach Ascension level 4, you will also unlock this potential exploration thing. And what it does is essentially it will give you a certain boost to your character based on the amount of milestones you have reached, right? So you will need these little milestone tokens, and you can get them by simply using the unit and meeting certain criteria. As you can see, use hair as a leader, clear 1 floor, you get 30 of these, right? And there's a bunch of quests. You will complete quite a few of these just by regularly playing, so don't worry too much about that, right? But yeah, what it does is it essentially boosts your certain stats. So as you can see, at level 0, it gets this buff. At level 1, when you set it as leader, it will give a certain 20% bonus to vitality, attack, and special attack, right? At level 2, increases vitality, and there's a bunch of buffs. It does get quite expensive, I would say, because the main drawback will not be these, but these tokens will be quite difficult to obtain, as well as this is essentially like a dupe, I believe, if I recall correctly, of this certain specific character, so it will get quite expensive in the end, right? Next up, what we have, actually no, before that I can also show you this stuff. So this is just a detailed breakdown of pretty much the same thing you've seen in the essential level up screen, right? So you can see the current engravings, maximum skill levels, basic stats, right? All of that goodness. Now, combat skills. So these are essentially the 4 skills that they have, right? The first 2 will be active skills that you can use in the fight. Some units will have 1 active skill, some units will have 2 of them, and I believe in their cases there are also 3 skills, but those are usually like 2 skills mixed into each other, and you can level these skills by paying these tokens, a certain amount of items, and mainly these little tokens, right? These, as you can see, it is a square. There are 3 types of these. You can have the square, the triangle, or the little other, I don't know what the shape is called, right? But essentially there will be dungeons where you can get all 3 of these. They are quite expensive, I will say this. When it comes to energy costs, skilling up skills will be a little bit on the more expensive side, but in general it is quite worth it, right? You can see that the exact effect you will gain is written in here. So in this case, if I level up the skill, the multiplier will go a little higher. So in this case, this unit does have 2 active skills that you can level up. There is the seed skill, which is essentially just a different name for an ultimate skill, and it does have 5 levels in total, right? You start at level 0, and you can level up to 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. However, each level up will require to summon a dupe of this unit, so skilling the seed skills will be very, very expensive. As you can see, I've been playing for quite a long time. I have received certain packages with like promotional stuff where I receive a lot of like crystals, I receive a lot of summons, and even then I was only able to reach level 1 on this unit. However, the main important level ups on most 6-star units will be the level 1 and the level 3, because for all other levels you just gain an extra amount of stats, but for level 1 and level 3 you unlock an additional improvement to the skill, and a lot of the units, they get very important upgrades at level 1 and not so important upgrades at level 3, right? So ideally you want to get at least to level 1 if you really want to reach that power creep of a unit, but even at level 0 majority of them will work just fine. Now for the other 2 menus, these are really mostly like achievements. As you can see, this is like the bonding milestone, which you can increase through like doing the nexus or doing tea time with them. Not gonna go too much into detail because this is more of a miscellaneous stuff, right? Like for example, here you can see all of your nexus engravings as well as the stats that you can get through them. The only thing I would pay attention to is the leader record right here, right? These are essentially the power-ups that you will be able to get from this unit, right? So for example, if you place this unit as a leader, you will be getting these 2 skills to all your Echomancers, and these specific 2 skills can change the value quite a bit based on who you place as the leader, so make sure to plan ahead when it comes to team building based on these. Oh, and the last one small thing I want to mention is the fitness training. So this is just essentially a way to upgrade some initial stats on your unit, right? So there will be 2 phases from what I can see, right? At least for now. There is phase 1 of both vitality, attack, and MST, right? These stats will vary a bit based on the type of the unit, right? For some units you will get some different stats, I believe, if I remember correctly, right? But yeah, you can level up the first 3 quite cheap. For the second 3 you will need a little bit more expensive materials, and these will have to be crafted through the whole little town that is added to the game, right? In the end it will not be too expensive. At least for the first 3 you are able to do it quite cheap. I can showcase it actually right now. If we go to the Seed Dome, and I believe yeah, you can see that currently it is already training another unit. I don't know why they pushed the time a little bit again. It says 141 hours. It should be, I believe with all 10 upgrades it was like 16 or 18 hours. I think they just switched back the server time because they are preparing for the launch, right? So yeah, unfortunately the timings are incorrect, but basically you are able to train some of their units and increase their stats. As you can see, increase their attack to level 2, 3, 4, and 5 by using these materials. And now let's talk about memory traces. So I do want to mention this. Echomancers by themselves, they cannot do much, right? Majority of their strength will come from these memory traces. And how these work, right? I would say in some games you can see, for example, a summon for characters and a summon for something like weapons or some kind of other system that you equip on your character and then level both the character as well as the equipment, right? I think with memory traces, this is done a little better because the main thing that will be saving your scrolls is you only need one memory trace of each type in order to reuse it on every single unit. For example, if you get a very good memory trace that you can use on like 10 different units, right? You only need to get one of them. You can upgrade them with dupes, right? For example, you can upgrade it in general with tokens, but also you can upgrade for extra special effects by getting a dupe. I believe there are 5 or 6 levels in total. The levels are represented by these little arrows, so you can see I currently have level 1, and if I level up to level 2, it will increase the chances of other skills, right? So with these things, these memory traces are essentially used in the nexus in order to get a special engraving. So how it works is you go to this nexus. Nexus will be like probably 70% of your game, right? Like the game will mainly be based around this nexus, and what it does is essentially once you complete a nexus run, you will get a special sort of like an upgrade template, I guess you can say, right? Which will hold the stats of that run. So you can see I have a lot of them. You do need to do them separately for each character. So for example, if I enter one from here, this got rank 26, it got a score of just over 5,000, right? And what it does is, you can see I have used 6 different memory traces, and based on these 6 memory traces, the unit that you use it in Nexus will get a specific amount of stats as well as specific amount of skills. So you can see, based on the ones I've used as well as the choices I've made, I have received improvements to all 5 of my stats. So this one was mostly increasing in attack as well as the terminal strength, a little bit of defense, and not too much in vitality and MST. This is by no means like the perfect build. This is just what I have at the moment. I still don't have every single memory trace unlocked, so it does become a little bit difficult to build in the end, right? But yeah, so basically it increases your basic stats as well as you gain a lot of skills for your unit. You can see that just on this one alone, my unit has 12 different skills. And trust me when I say this, building teams will be quite difficult. This game has been, I will say, very confusing, but in a good way, because there is a lot to learn, right? I would say with most games, the learning curve is pretty easy but hard to master. For this one, I will say it is actually quite hard to learn in general and even harder to master, right? So don't worry if you are absolutely clueless what you are doing for like a week, 2 weeks, right? It took me quite a while to understand how all of these systems work, and I hope it sheds some light with this video if you are watching, right? So I'm not gonna go too deep into how to obtain these, right? I will make a follow-up video on how obtaining all of these stats and all of these skills work when I cover the Nexus itself, right? But what you need to know is after the Nexus run, you will essentially get a certain amount of stats for your unit, and you will get a certain level of skills for a specific unit, a specific class, all of that. You can see that the stats that you have unlocked will be showcased in blue. So for example, if you have leveled up a trace to level 3, it will give you the maximum amount of stats. If you were not able to get it quite to level 3, for example at level 2, it will give you the buff at level 2, and level 3 will be grayed out. And at level 1, you will only be getting the level 1 buff from the trace. And once you have done a Nexus run, you are essentially able to just select this little memory, what are they called exactly? Tactical engraving, there we go. So you are able to select this tactical engraving in a fight. The cool thing about this, and the reason I say this is very difficult game to learn, you can make a lot of different builds. As you can see, I have one build for what's his name, Mo Hongshu, I guess I pronounce it pretty badly, right? And I have another build right here, which is I think my older build, right? And you can have several different builds for several different characters, which means that you should be prioritizing builds for specific teams rather than making a build for a specific character, right? So instead of, like, she is a fire unit, she has that little square type or whatever, right? Instead of making a general build for her, you do want to be making a build for, let's say, a fire focused team. Then you want to be making a specific build for, let's say, a physical based team, right? And yeah, you just want to explore these builds. Don't worry, you are able to mark them with these little tags, so you do not get lost between the builds, right? But yeah, there will be a lot of different variations that you can do, and let me just showcase it real quick. So yeah, there we go. If I go into any fight, right, once you are ready to engage into those, this excludes everything except the nexus, right? You can see that once you select the leader, it will always be placed at the top left of the screen. The leader will be able to choose the engraving that you want, and you can choose this, you can choose a different one, right? If you choose a different unit, it will place that unit as the leader, because you are only able to use one of these engravings per fight, and it will always have to be your leader, right? So yeah, once you select your leader, you are able to choose the engraving that you want, which will basically boost not only your units, but every single unit in the game based on the stats of that engraving, right? And for the other units, you can modify what you bring to the fight. You can bring a total of 7 yourself, and some modes will allow you to use a friend's rep for that 8th unit, right? Not all of them allow it, but some of them will. So whenever it is allowed, I do recommend using it, right? And based on these engravings, as you can see, you will increase the stats as well as the inspire skills, which are basically like leader skills, will give you extra damage bonus to your whole team, right? So I will talk about that in the Nexus video a bit as well, right? But yeah, this is just the general battle overview when it comes to building your teams. And to finish off, I want to be going a little more in depth when it comes to memory traces, right? So similar to the units, there are 3 different rarities of them. Let me see if I can even find them. There we go, rarity. So there is the rare type, the SR, or the SSR, which is the highest type, right? I think there is like an equal number of all rarities of these traces, right? And usually the SSRs will be more like unique unit based selections, right? Not always. Some units will have like 8 different traces that work for them, whereas other units will only have like 1 or 2 that's good for them. You will have to depend that based on each unit, right? But usually I prefer to use SRs and SSRs. The R ones are sort of like more general buffs, right, which work on more units, but they also provide a little bit of less stats to them, right? So let's check the SSR ones. And when it comes to memory traces, there is a lot to look into here, right? But the main things you want to be paying attention to will be the initial stats they give, as well as the main trace awakening skill, right? First of all, how you can determine the initial stats is based on the type. So let's say if I select vitality, right, I click this Skyfall, and you can see it's currently at level 60. Each 10 levels will give you 10 extra buffs, or basically a buff per level. And if you do select this in the Nexus, it will essentially give you this amount of stats. So it will give you primarily vitality, right? Because it is a vitality type trace. It will give you 40 vitality, 10 attack, 6 MST, 14 terminal power. And these do differ based on the type of them, right? And what these do is, these are the base stats that you will start off your Nexus run, and you can improve it by just simply doing the Nexus run itself. Now there are other effects. For example, you can see that in the Nexus you will get some bonus effects here, you will get some bonus effects there, and they do increase as you level up, right? Unfortunately, this one is max level for what I can level up right now, so I cannot show you any higher. But if I go to one that I can level up, you can see that if I, first of all, you have every 10 levels you have to awaken and then you can level up. You can see for example, illumination chance bonus, it goes from 4% to 5.2, and all of the other stats are basically going up, as well as the base stats that you will be getting, right? Nexus skills, so these are like an add-on to the Trace Awakening. I will say Trace Awakening is like the main skill that will be the easiest to get, and you should be building your units based on the Trace Awakening. Nexus skills are skills that you may randomly get in a run, but because there are so many skills, you are never guaranteed to get them in the game, whereas with Trace Awakenings, you are most likely able to get them because there will only be 6 different Trace Awakenings based on the 6 traces that you choose, right? Whereas with Nexus skills, imagine I choose this one, there are 7 different skills that you can get. I select another trace, there are another 7 different skills that you can select. So in a total there will be like 30 to 40 different skills, because some of the skills do look identical for some of the traces, right? But essentially it will be very hard to match these. So ideally you want to be using your traces based on the Trace Awakening as well as the basic stats. And for Trace Awakenings, you will have these skills and they will all have 3 levels each, which means that basically you are able to level up the strength of your engraving based on the level of it. So if you only take 1 upgrade into the Trace Awakening skill, you will get the level 1. If you take 3 levels into it, you will get the level 2. And if you take 5 upgrades into it, you will get the level 3, right? So yeah, this is the basic overview of the Echomancer and the memory traces, right? In the next one, I will be focusing more on the Nexus, because this in itself is like a whole different uncharted territory that it would probably, like, to properly explain would take like 5 videos at least, but I'll try to summarize it a little bit quicker into one video, right? And yeah, if you have any questions about Echomancers, memory tracers, or any other aspect that I haven't covered yet, make sure to leave a comment. I will try to do my best to answer them. And yes, stay tuned for future Ash Echoes videos, as well as potentially some live streams once the game goes live. So yeah, that's about it, and peace.